EP4. Give me a second. I'm going to click go live. All right, we are now live. So welcome everybody to episode 4 of the Catamount Trail Chatter series. Tonight, I'm sitting down with Vermont Huts Association founders, RJ Thompson and Devin Littlefield. As they approach their 5th year in existence, we're gonna talk to them a little bit to find out about how they came to be, how the last 5 years have gone, and kind of what the future holds. So welcome, Devin and RJ.
Hello, thanks for having us.
Thanks, Greg.
Yeah, thanks for being here. So let's jump in. Where are you guys from, and what are your roles within the Vermont Huts Association? What do you guys do?
What do we do? What do we do?
We do everything. I mean, seriously.
Where am I from? Like, where do I live right now, or where did I grow up?
Well, how about, where do you live right now?
I live in Stowe right now, by way of New Jersey and Jackson Hole. So,
how long have you been in Vermont?
Since 2002, minus a 3-year stint in Jackson Hole.
Okay, so you've been around for a little while.
Long enough to lose most of my hair.
And Devin, you're a slightly newer transplant.
I am.
Where are you located right now, and how long have you been in Vermont?
So I live in South Burlington, and I've actually only been a Vermont resident for, I think 6 years, maybe 7. And really not much longer than, co-founding the organization with RJ. I kind of transplanted, and I'm like, I have this idea, let's go. So yeah.
I do remember that first time meeting you at the Backcountry Forum, and I feel like there was a presentation that night about huts, and you were like, "Is there any organization dedicated to huts?" And I was like, "Not yet." And like the next time your name came up, it was like, "Hey, the Vermont Huts Association is coming together."
Yeah. Oh man, it's a wild ride. I'm excited to share more about that. But for sure, yeah, I moved to Vermont about 6 years ago, and the organization got started shortly thereafter. But similar to RJ, by way of Alaska actually was where I spent and got my teeth sharpened in terms of huts. But then to Vermont. So
awesome. So what are you guys' roles within the Vermont Huts Association kind of like world?
So I'm when we first started, we were co-executive directors actually back in 2016. And that was kind of because we didn't really know what we were doing, and we didn't really know what shape this was going to take. I guess shortly thereafter, I became the executive director, just time, the way time was. And, Devin had a full-time gig at that moment. And I was kind of in transition from one career to the next, and it just kind of worked out that way. And my role is just wearing, like many small nonprofit EDs and employees, is just wearing as many hats that I can balance on my head at any given point in time.
Yeah, and for me, director of marketing. But like RJ just said, it's about 100 different hats. It feels like sometimes it's definitely a busy workload, and a lot of responsibilities for sure. I think definitely we manage a lot of the even the email communications for folks who need reservation changes. Those come in, and I know even RJ is still handling good chunk of those, and so we're both just doing whatever we need to at this point.
Nice. And so are you guys both full-time with VHA, or do you guys have other gigs?
So RJ is, I actually do work another full-time gig as well. I mean, over time, I think we're trying to figure out what the balance is going to be for, the needed positions for the organization. But, it's really, I will say it's sweet to be having my hands actually in another company as well as with Vermont Huts, because I feel like I just share so much information back and forth. Digital marketing is digital marketing, whether it's a nonprofit or not. So it's definitely fun, I say, to be in both at this point.
That's great. Yeah, and I'm imagining that those resources that you get from the other job come in handy for like supplementing your role.
Absolutely. Oh my gosh, even just learning about some of the online ad grants that are available, like, boom, super helpful.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's great to have Devin involved in any capacity, because I like the things that I just can't wrap my head around, or like used to be able to wrap my head around, but now the times are like changing more. It makes me feel really old. Devin is like on point and knows how to meet those needs and make sure that we remain relevant and come up pretty much first or second in any SEO search. So you can thank Devin for that.
Nice. Awesome.
Yeah.
So how did the two of you meet?
Through Amy, through your previous boss, Amy Kelsey. Yeah.
Hmm.
We were having parallel conversations with her, and she brought us together.
So what were those conversations? So tell me about that time. Like, you guys were both thinking this similar thoughts at the same time and having those conversations with various trails organizations, and Amy happened to be the one that connected you two?
Yeah, I mean, I'll let Devin speak to his experience, but when I was, I was invited to an FPR, like stakeholders, like brainstorming session back in 2015 or 2016. I can't remember when, but, Amy was there, and I was invited because I was putting on some events with Native Endurance, a company that I started a few years back, and was talking about, a hut, just one. I really was just talking about one hut in like Nebraska Valley somewhere, and why we didn't really have anything like that beyond like Bryant Camp and Bolton Lodge, etc. I think back then even Bolton Lodge was maybe still not a thing, and Bryant was in the process of being restored. Yeah, and then she said, well, you know what? Like, I think you should probably meet this guy Devin, because he just I just talked to him recently, and I don't know what your conversation was like with Amy, Devin.
Yeah, so actually it's definitely similar tangent. I moved to Vermont, and I think, Greg, as you mentioned before, I was at the Backcountry Forum, and I'm like, Greg, where are the huts? And he's like, no, we don't have any, man. And I'm like, I gotta go start something, and fresh into this state, I'm like, yeah, I'll just change everything, and we can just put a bunch of huts in the ground and it'll be fine. But no, ultimately, I think I actually, I ended up having several conversations with Amy just about this idea of huts, and she helped fill me in on, like the Green Mountain Club having some structures of their own, and, just a lot of Joe Schmoes who have deer camps, right, or hunting camps that they use, and they just stay in them during the winter sometimes. And she filled me in that way. And then it actually, I think one step prior to meeting RJ, I ultimately ended up pulling together basically a list of Airbnbs, inns, like other hut structures that I think could be found, right? It was super kind of ghetto. And it was basically, I remember giving a small presentation, I think, to Amy Kelsey at the time, executive director at Catamount Trail, the Green Mountain Club board, and several other members. And I presented this list to them, and I'm like, hey, there's a need for huts in Vermont. What do you guys think? Give me some info. And they're like, it's a great idea. Maybe you should go do something about it. And, that, I think that's right when Amy, at least as I recall it, that's when Amy was like, oh, by the way, Archie, this guy is doing some research. You two need to meet up and get a beer and talk. And so we did, and here we are now 5 years later, and crushing it.
The first meeting I remember was at the Green Mountain Club. So thanks to GMC, they've always been a really great partner of ours from the start, and they hosted the meeting of the quote unquote minds, and yeah, it was cool. We met with Amy. I think Angus was there, Brian Moore was there, Dave Hardy from the Green Mountain Club was there, and Devin and I. I think maybe that was it. So there was representation from like the hiking community, skiing community,
Mike DeBonis,
biking community. Was Mike?
Mm-hmm.
Mike was also there. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry. And then at that, out of that meeting, the kind of takeaway was, none of the existing organizations, it would be it would have been a significant mission drift for any of the one organizations to take on a year-round hut network. And that's when the question was asked, well, so who wants to do this? And Devin and I stupidly raised our hands, and here we are. And it's turned out it feels like I haven't worked in 5 years because I absolutely love what we're doing. So
yeah. So after that initial meeting, when the two of you raised your hand and everybody else was like, gave you the thumbs up and said, go for it. Like, what was the first step? Like, what did you guys do to like get started?
We took your awesome research project, Devin, I remember, and I think we tried to overlay that with existing trail networks and stuff to see if there was any real alignment with a lot of those like Airbnb stuff. And it was kind of like a continued research project for the first like 6 months, I think, maybe.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that sounds right.
And we just were like, yeah, that's why there's no hut network, because there's no huts near any of the trails. So validated the idea. And then we got to work partnering with other trail chapters across the state, trying to figure out where it might make sense to start locating some of these structures.
Yeah, there were also some other logistical conversations that RJ and I had about like, well, should this be a for-profit or a nonprofit entity? You know, should we be a chapter of, say, like Vemba or something like that? Like it ended up coming through several iterations of conversations before we got to that point of saying, you know, this is really it's a unique organization in Vermont that, you know, it would, like RJ said, be mission drift for any other org. So it's probably best to be on our own. Let's start our own thing and move forward. And yeah, I mean, I think once we knew that we were going nonprofit, you know, we were document signed and up and running officially within the matter of what seemed like probably a month or two, if I remember right, RJ. It was pretty fast.
Yeah, we used for those who care about legal stuff, we used Vemba as a corporate sponsor until we received our official 501c3 determination letter from the IRS. And our first grant was from the Lintelak Foundation. So shout out to them, and they continue to support us, which is amazing, especially during a pandemic.
Yeah, those guys are awesome.
Yeah, they're great. And you know, that was that. It felt like I remember though thinking, Devin, remember we were talking about how long it was taking to get that determination letter from the IRS.
Oh my gosh.
We were like, government's taking forever.
Yeah.
But of course, we're really good partners with the Green Mountain National Forest. So federal government is actually pretty incredible at a lot of things, believe it or not.
Yeah, I feel like everything just takes longer when there are so many stakeholders, right? Like I think that's something that a lot of people looking in from the outside don't realize, just like how much work some of these projects take. Like, you know, like with our work with Rasta and Brandon Gap, it seemed like it came out of nowhere, but a lot of people don't realize how much time, how much energy was spent years leading up to that.
Yeah.
There's stuff that'll be happening in Camel's Hump Forest sooner or later once that management plan goes through, and I don't think people will realize that some of that stuff's been like 8 or 9 years.
Yeah, how old is Amy's son? I mean, that's
no, exactly. Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, no, these things take time. So there's a lot of stakeholders. Everybody needs to be heard, and it's public land. So
once you guys determined that you're going to do your own thing, you were your own entity, kind of like got your nonprofit, you headed down the independent nonprofit road. What were you looking at? What were you hoping like that first, 2-3 years was going to be like? What were some of your goals? I mean, like, what was your original plan? And does the Vermont Huts Association today resemble that initial plan, or were there some changes to it? Okay.
Yeah, sorry, I'm kind of shaking my head here.
Yeah, you seem like you have thoughts.
Yeah, I do. At first, it's funny because having done that research project and being able to call out how many structures were actually in place, I think at the beginning we had a lot higher emphasis on let's just get existing structures in our network. And that was like, I don't think that was first and foremost on our minds, but it was certainly higher up at the time than it is like at this point. Obviously we still want partners to be approaching us and we want to approach them, but I think we were definitely a bit more focus on that approach to start with. And especially because there was a proven model like Airbnb and VRBO at the time, that were very prominent at that time. So it's like, oh, we'll just poach all those guys and get them onto our network and life will be good,
Yeah.
Like,
so just to clarify, the model you're talking about is providing some sort of unique portal that would give, somebody that was looking for access to everything in all hut structures in Vermont. And so if somebody owned like a yurt or something on like a property somewhere, they could join the network and rent out their hut via like an Airbnb model. And you guys would provide that kind of platform.
Yeah, exactly. We effectively competing with Airbnb, which in some ways, I guess we are, right? We have structures in our network now that are, they'd probably be just perfectly fine on Airbnb too. But the idea obviously being that it's a much more, I'd say, unified experience in that you're going to get that more backcountry focus connected by trail, like that was really what we were going for. And that was generally the mission that I think we had more of a focus on starting out, that's now definitely pivoted the other way.
Yeah.
So,
and was your emphasis on that just because it seemed like the easier path forward at the time, or was it?
I think it was out of necessity, like to know what was out there. But the reality set in pretty quickly. Remember, Devin, we're like, we would need a lot of these huts if we're gonna make this a sustainable organization. Like, even if we're taking like 12% of revenues, like the volume just wouldn't exist with trailside accommodations. So then the question was, okay, how can we become a sustainable organization and eventually rely less and less on grants, so that those grants could be freed up, for trail projects, et cetera. And we still rely on grants because we only really have one hut that is ours that we own and operate and generates revenue. But the pivot was hard. It was like, okay, we know there's really nothing out there that could provide the volume that we need. So let's start building some huts and stop talking about a concept and create tangible product. And that's when we really, I think, ramped up. And we took a risk for sure. We committed to building a hut before we really had any money to build it. But thanks to like Vermonters and the foundations that are out there and people just wanting this to happen in general, we just took that energy and channeled it into the Chittenden Brook Hut.
And so how's that project going so far? Is it even possible to reserve a night in it if you're not?
Not this winter, no.
Definitely not the winter.
Right. So location is key, right, in real estate. And because Rasta had created, and pardon me, I'm starving, so I'm eating some granola, so don't judge. Yeah. The backcountry access there contributes greatly to its popularity, but it's also a really beautiful structure and a pretty sweet spot. So yeah, it's super hard to get a reservation, which is good and bad, right? Like we want to give as many people as we possibly can the opportunity to stay in that hut at an affordable price, and it is really affordable. But at the same time, we need to build more huts to offer that opportunity to more people, because it's 100% all winter, and as we saw last summer, was near 100% in that season. So
cool. Well, that's good. That's a good sign, right? You have this one structure. It's kind of killing it. It's it kind of illustrates that the demand is there and people are interested in this kind of like concept. So what are you guys doing kind of like looking forward? Like, do you guys have? Yeah, I've seen the proposed map of like where hut structures, but like how far along are some of those things, and like what's your next? Is there anything on the horizon?
Oh yeah. Well, I just wanted to say, like, that's the one hut that we own and operate. There are 7 locations across the state, 8 total locations across the state that are also managed by our private operators, and they're seeing the same level of success at their structures. So it's not just isolated to our one hut. It's kind of across the board. But to answer your question, the sky's the limit, really. We're working very closely with Vermont Trail Collective and obviously the Catamount Trail to try to strategically align on future hut locations. The most, alive and has the most momentum at the moment is a structure down in southern Vermont. Can't really, I mean, we could say it's going to be near Stratton. We're about to enter the silent round of fundraising, so that's not very silent that I'm saying it during this podcast or whatever. but we're building at least one new hut this year, hopefully two. And the north-south corridor will be comprised of anywhere from 30 to 45 huts.
In the end. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so you're on track to build potentially two more huts by the end of 2021.
At least one and two if permitting goes well.
Awesome. That's exciting.
And I'll speak to something that I think both of you have said earlier too. Things take a lot longer than we could have ever recognized, and certainly, RJ, I feel like you and I had really ambitious plans to be like, we're going to have like 10 structures in the ground in like 5 years. It was like something asinine like that just is not what?
We've got 8. They're not all ours, but we've got 8.
Right. But it's still like, I think the intent was we were going to build a ton of them in a very short period of time. And, obviously just things take longer than we could ever expect. And, and for good reason. One thing that I've learned over the last couple of years too, is that things, especially if it involves government, can tend to move slowly, but that's by design to try and make sure that enough voices are being heard and that things are being considered properly, not just we're going to get a hut in the ground tomorrow and, then suddenly realize, oh, shoot, we're we're endangering these species of frogs, whatever it happens to be. Like there are reasons why there are steps in the process that kind of slow things down. And I think in some ways it's actually good. It's allowed us, I think, to be more methodical about hut location choices and actually strategically trying to place huts, that could fit along the Catamount Trail, as well as other future plans in that regard, and strategically locating them. So it's been good, I think, to actually have that, believe it or not.
Yeah, I mean, and it's really set I was just gonna say, it's that due diligence across the board has really set a really strong foundation for, I guess if we can say that we're entering year 5, like years 6 through 10, like we now know what needs to be done. And so we can get to a point where we are building like 3, 4, and 5 huts per year toward the end of that time frame. So it's slow to start, but the snowball is growing, and it's also picking up speed as it rolls down the hill.
Yeah, and I do feel like especially now that we have some experience under our belts as an organization at this point, it definitely, I think it brings a sense of calm and ease to some folks, because of course any strategic partner, they want to see some longer term viability in that organization. And so just by the fact that we have been around 5 years, we now have kind of a showcase of huts that we've gotten started with. Now we have a little bit of history behind the organization. They know us, like RJ and I personally now. So it's I think it's actually a good thing where we are right now. It's not to say we've been too slow or gone too fast, but I think we're at just the right point at this point. We've got strategic relationships now with the organizations and partners that we need to, and now it's just we getting our plan in motion and taking off.
Well, exactly. I mean, I think it's building that clout. You know what I mean? Like you have when you're new, people don't know. How committed are you? How invested are you? Are you guys going to be good leaders? At this point in time, like that's people know. People have there's history there, and they can read into that, and they can see that you guys are doing a great job. There's demand. You understand what the process is. So now it just seems like it's just you have those feathers in your cap, and you can like look back. You can use those to kind of like earn entry or push your way forward, which is. I'm glad to hear it's going so well, because if you think you're going to be building 5+ huts a year in 10 years, that's going to be, or in 5 years, that's going to be sweet.
Things are, I mean,
no commitment,
No, I mean, it's very possible. It's very possible. It's not going to happen next year, but like I said, the momentum is there, and I think funding is of course a big part of the conversation, but there's a lot of really it's not just Devin and I working on this now. It's a lot of other people who are a lot smarter than we are. So that's good too.
So along those lines, if it's not just the two of you, who are these other people that are helping out? Are they part of the Vermont Huts Association, or are they other organizations or just interested individuals that are wanting to see this happen?
Yeah, no, they're people that we all like. I shouldn't say we all know, but it's folks that, organizations that have existed in the state, or new ones that have cropped up recently, like the Vermont Trail Collective. But it's also comprised of many partners that we're aware of. Angus McCusker, Katrin Maloney, and having them involved with the Vermont Trail, like it just helps to further our mission as well, because now we can start to link up to other chapters across the state to provide that connectivity component that we want. But we're also chatting with the Vermont Youth Conservation Corps right now to try to figure out a way to scale up, efficiently. And so they've got a ton of expertise working in the backcountry and remote locations. And so that's a new, emerging partnership that we're excited about. They also have a long history of working here in Vermont. So yeah, as far as, within our organization, it's still just Devin and I and our board. But, there's myriad other organizations and individuals who are a part of the greater movement.
Yeah, and one other, we do technically have a group of members at this point. So we have a small, not small, but we have a membership base where folks can get the early access into bookings for huts at this point, as well as in the future, we're working to get some other discounts and some other swag and deals going for them as well. But those are I would say those are largely just avid supporters of the organization and the mission. And I think, almost more encouraging sometimes than the direct partnerships are the people that actually believe in the mission and believe in us and what we're doing. And I think that mission of wanting to create 4-season year-round recreation in Vermont and allowing easy access for folks to get outside and enjoy nature through the use of huts. I think that really speaks to a lot of people. And I think it's just been overwhelming from day one, just the amount of kudos, thumbs up, high fives that we get on a regular basis for, driving that mission and going in that direction. So, we certainly thank all those people who do support us in that way as well. And we just look for, of course, any outdoors people that loves Vermont. I think is a good candidate to also be a supporter too.
For sure.
Yeah, Devin. I mean, this is a great point, Devin. Like, I'm glad you mentioned that, because we're like, I often think about it like we're just the conduit for all of that energy through which that energy flows, and we're kind of like directing and guiding it, but like ultimately we're just kind of channeling that energy to make these things happen. And without the energy behind it, it just doesn't really exist. And, of course, the support and partnerships with the land managers, Green Mountain National Forest, Vermont Forest Parks and Rec, like they're critical players as well. Like it's not just those who recreate, it's the land managers who, can give access and have conversations with us and help guide our decision-making process. So there's so many more people than Devin and I. And it's fun to be a part of it. Not to mention like the fun businesses in Vermont who like support us, like Lawson's and OGE. I mean, just a lot of people making it happen.
For sure. So you've mentioned the Vermont Trail Project a number of times now. So how important are like long trail? Like one, maybe do you want to tell us more about what the Vermont is, just in case people don't know? And then also, how important are like these long trail systems, like the Vermont or the Long Trail or the Catamount Trail, to what you guys are hoping to accomplish, in 10, 15, 20 years?
Well, Devin, yeah, do you mind if I snag this one since?
Yeah, please. Go for it.
Sorry, and feel free to cut me off at any point. What the Vermont Trail is effectively is not a new trail. It's a connection of existing networks across the state. So it's kind of an opportunity to bring Vermonters and visitors into local communities and then back into the forest along their adventure, right? So imagine biking or running or even skiing in some sections where it overlaps with the Catamount Trail. into Rochester, for example, go to Sandy's, grab a sandwich and a snack, and then continue pedaling up the hill to the Chittenden Brook Hut. And then the next day you bike down into Pittsfield and grab lunch at the general store. So the Vermont Trail is, think of it as a lower elevation, long trail, primarily built for mountain biking, but multi-use standards.
And again, it's not necessarily a new trail. It's a new route. You're basically facilitating a route from Massachusetts to Canada by connecting existing trail systems.
Yeah, there will definitely be new trail constructed.
Sure. Yeah. No. But I mean, but you're looking at existing trail systems.
Absolutely. Yeah. A good chunk of the Vermont Trail like already exists, right?
Exactly.
But we need to make those connections with new trail. Yeah. And I can give you my opinion about what those long distance trails mean to me personally and to Vermont. But I think with these end-to-end trails, you provide new points of access to the community surrounding them, and it's a draw for them. Economic driver to the health impacts that it creates for those communities. I could go on and on about that, but maybe Devin has something to add to that.
Yeah, I'll just add in that, I think the one thing that especially end-to-end trails do really well is create this concept of a journey, right? You're starting in one location, ending in another. And just like all good movies, right? You're taking on a journey that has its ups and its downs, but at the end of the day, it's all about the adventure along the way. And I know it's extremely cliche to say it. I'm almost embarrassed I just said that. But the idea, right, the concept is that you're creating this adventure by a multi-day adventure that's taking you through various sceneries, through wild places. And, that idea, I think, really draws people in. And the fact is, for years and years, obviously, there's been the Catamount Trail and the Long Trail, being able to accomplish those specific sport disciplines, but now with the Vermont Trail, you're getting kind of that third discipline of being able to mountain bike, which there's been a lot of people for years also doing kind of this underground bike packing route that follow kind of a similar route with roads and where places they probably shouldn't be biking to. So it'll be nice to actually facilitate that type of behavior and get people to actually be on this, this state long trail. So it's all just part of just creating great recreational opportunities in Vermont is what it comes down to. And I think the better we can all do to integrate these different trails and these huts and tie them together and make cohesive experiences, everybody's going to benefit from it at the end.
Now, are you guys looking at, when you guys look at these long trail systems, like, where the Long Trail, the Catamount Trail, and the Vermont Trail potentially overlap? I would imagine those are kind of like, critical areas where a hut makes perfect sense because you have potential year-round users kind of accessing it, depending on how remote the location is. And so does that, I imagine that plays into your kind of like strategy for prioritizing hut locations?
Yeah, no, definitely. You want to, ideally we site any new hut in an area that's seeing a high level of usage already. So we're not trying to create a new massive network and a hut somewhere, right? Ideally, you place them where there, like you said, is that overlap. And so you're not necessarily creating a huge amount of impact, new impact in any one spot. There's definitely going to be waypoints though along the trail, the corridors, right? Like where there's really nothing nearby, but it's too far between the next like higher level area of impact, and you need a waypoint hut there. So those huts would probably be a little simpler in design than Chittenden Brook, and maybe lower capacity since they would probably see a little less usage. But location, and that's why we partner so closely with Vermont Trail Collective, and we talk to you guys at the Catamount Trail and Keegan over at the Green Mountain Club. So I was just thinking, Devin, you mentioned adventure, and when I don't know if you recall, but when we were first getting started, we made this promo video, and
oh my gosh, yeah.
Dune Hendricks down in Rochester had a great quote, and he was asked, what would we were calling it wasn't even called Vermont Trail back then. It was called, what would an end-to-end mountain biking trail supported by a hut network mean for Vermont? And I think Doom put it pretty well. He said it would make people say to themselves, I'm going to go to Vermont and I'm going to have an adventure. And that's kind of what we're trying to create, and making it more accessible to more people, including beginners and families.
Awesome. I'm excited. So, especially having gotten into bike packing in the last few years, like, you know, the idea of you can just cover so much, like, no offense to winter, but summer and fall travel is much more comfortable. You don't have to carry as much stuff. And I mean, I've been on 3 winter bike packing trips already this year, so I'm not opposed to camping in the winter, but summer camping and fall camping is much more comfortable. But so let's talk about the huts for a little bit themselves. So you have Chittenden Brook Hut. That's the only hut that you guys currently own and operate. The other 7 huts that are in the system are owned by other people, but are rented through the Vermont Huts Association platform.
Yeah. There's 3 of those other 8. 3 of those other 7 are rented through us. The others have their own separate platform. We do help though to market and promote
and connect people with those. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
And then as far as your huts go, like in future hut builds, do you have like are there a variety of, like, you know, formats, or you know it seems like you have the Chittenden Brook Hut is one thing. There's nobody there manning it. You're kind of on your own, but it's a really nice location. Do you have smaller kind of models and larger models kind of in mind?
Yeah, I can speak to that just at least for a second, RJ, and then certainly feel free to chime in. But yeah, I think, you know, Chittenden Brook Hut is interesting because that was designed around, you know, 8 to 10 person capacity. And at the time, obviously, this was all pre-pandemic as well. I think we were thinking, you know, people are going to want to gather, like they're going to want to go ski hard with their friends, right? They're going to want to go into this structure and just hang out and then go do some laps and then play games at night. And we were, that intent for that size of a structure is designed around groups of people. I think the pandemic has, not to say it's changed our opinions at all, but I think it's made us more aware that we should have more variety of structures and sizes within our network as we build them moving forward. That said, I mean, I think several of the structures do vary in size currently in our network, but of course, those were built by partners. We didn't have a choice in how many people could actually stay in them necessarily. So moving forward, I know we've definitely thought a lot about what capacity of structures should be, and thinking about, again, and kind of alluding to what RJ said earlier, with sites that might potentially be really popular, maybe those should have higher capacities overall for groups of people potentially, if we get back to that point, or certainly pods if, you know, people are quarantining safely and still able to travel as groups. But we're trying to think through different ways of how to be able to just diversify the offerings. So, but I generally think the minimum size at this point is probably going to be 2 people, maybe 4. I don't think we'll end up like Colorado with a 1-person shanty.
Do you guys think you would ever build like a 2 or 4 person structure?
Sorry?
Would you guys ever build a 2 or 4 person structure, or is that just something? I mean, I know you have some structures in your network right now that are smaller. 3-4 people, I think, are some of the smallest. And then
yeah, Turtle Creek is 4 people. That's a partner hut.
Yeah. But would you guys build something that size? Would that make sense for you, or would you guys be focusing on like larger capacities?
Well, I guess it's important to note large, right?
Sure. Yeah.
Large for us would be like 15 people.
Yeah. Okay.
And I think the smaller huts would be, like I was saying, like one of the, like a waypoint kind of thing. And, you know, I think there's a fun, like Greg, I mentioned this to you a while back, and Devin and I loosely chat about it, but like, I think there's an opportunity to figure out something along the Catamount Trail where we have like these smaller huts along the CT to allow people to keep going on it, but not, you know, keep them like super primitive. And so that's something that we're playing with, like, and need to develop more. But right now, it's like focusing on the 8 to 15 person capacity huts.
Yeah. Well, and also just as like from a bike packing perspective, or even a skiing perspective, like you don't necessarily know if say you were going from, like, you were starting at in the Massachusetts border and you're going to the Canadian border, like you might have some idea of when you're going to be someplace, but we all know that can change
right
really quickly. And so are there plans at some of these sites to have like tenting space or other spots where you can kind of have, because a lot of the state parks and stuff will have, if you're a bike packer and you roll in, they'll let you set up wherever. You don't have to make a reservation ahead of time or worry about the sites all being sold out.
Right. Well, there's a couple of things that come into play when you think about adding like tent sites or walk-in reservations, right? Like there's so many different operational considerations to like work through at each spot, and there's definitely a place for it, and I think it's possible. It's also critical to have these conversations with the land managers to see, like, do they want to add that additional impact to a vicinity. Also, when you book a hut, in most instances, unless it's a shared use structure, which is where you interact with other parties, which isn't happening now, but when COVID ends, it will happen. You're booking your bed or the hut under the assumption you have, like, that's the only structure or like human place of sleeping overnight within an expected distance, right? And so when you start dispersing like other tenting areas or maybe even like a smaller pod hut nearby, the experience changes. I'm not saying it's better or worse, but it changes, and we just need to consider stuff like that.
Sure. Just curious about the like more flexible camping options, because like that's always a concern with some of the experiences we're trying to facilitate. It's one thing if you're gonna schedule out like a 3-day trip, right? And you can build in some kind of buffers there to ensure that you're where you need to be, right, and the times you need to be, regardless of what happens. But if you're planning a longer trip, then that it's harder to manage all of those logistical challenges. And so we've all been on these types of trips, so we all know how quickly they go awry.
I'm doing
almost every time. So,
yeah, no, it's all, yeah.
I don't know. It seems like this great opportunity, and I guess I'm just curious to see. Yeah, additional impacts. There's so many other considerations as well, but
I would love for it to happen. There's just a lot to consider, and I think we have to really think it through and come up with a plan. And it'd be nice to have groups interacting with one another and have a little flexibility in any one individual's plan. That said, the hut is like, at least the ones on public land are required to allow passersby in if they're in distress, right? If it's a blizzard outside, or if the temperature drops and you're like hypothermic, it's in our operational plan to like provide shelter for these humans if they're in a bad place.
Cool. Yeah, no, that's great. Well, and so it sounds, you've already mentioned how COVID's kind of affected. Have you guys had any other challenges, or has COVID any unexpected benefits of a pandemic?
Yeah. We actually, I think not to completely attribute reservations to COVID by any means. There's certainly been high demand for the structures all along, but I think COVID actually has ramped them up in a way, especially I would say some of the smaller structures too, because they just have people can go there and feel like they're safe and still meet some quarantine requirements that the state requires as well. Assuming that they can, meet quarantine requirements that the state provides, they can still go stay at the structures, which I don't think a lot of people know at this point, but those that have definitely been taking advantage of it. So, if anything, I think COVID has actually kind of bolstered that, because now you're no longer in this public hotel like in downtown Burlington, right, where you're going to be passing by 30 people to get to your room. You're in a secluded structure that's on its own, and people really like that. I do also think the uprising of like Instagram and that hashtag cabin life is like helping drive some of that interest too, because people are now looking out for these types of structures, and they're finding them with us. So sure. That's been great.
And I feel like the staycation is something that's risen up during the pandemic. Like Vermonters that just like my wife and I know it's hard to get a reservation because we've looked for places to go with our 2 kids. Like we need to get out of Burlington. And we've looked at the Vermont Huts to see if there were any openings it seems like that would feed into, just like people finding this stuff, like the explore your own backyard type of mentality. You know what I mean? A lot of people are kind of like digging into outdoor recreation is definitely on people's minds, and people aren't traveling very far, so they're looking for what's in their backyard. So.
Right. Greg, did you sign up for the newsletter cancellation notices? Because that's a thing now.
I know. I think I get enough newsletters. I see your posts anyway, so I usually try and share them when they come up.
Posts go out after the newsletter, though. So.
Okay. I'll consider it.
That's a call to action for anybody watching or listening in to go to vermonthuts.org and sign up for our last minute cancellation notifications. So that way you will be notified the minute that a booking is canceled, and you might be able to swipe it up. As long as you currently meet state guidelines for quarantining, you can book it. So yeah, that's the call to action.
Nice. Awesome. So what are the next 2 years? What are you guys hoping what do the next 2 years look like for you guys? And then maybe beyond that, what's the next 5 years look like?
Yeah, I mean, as I said, I think alluded to a little earlier, we're kind of in the scaling up phase right now. And it means more partnerships, greater and stronger collaboration with those partners, but also adding capacity to like our ability to get projects to a point where they're shovel ready, and then identify, the contractor or partner organization, perhaps VYCC, to build those. So we, want to get to a point where we're able to build multiple huts in a year, and that means doing a lot of permitting work up front. And so that's kind of the goal. The next 2 years is to set, to continue to grow that foundation to a point where, okay, we know in year 3 from today, we will be able to build 4 or 5 huts, and in year 4, 5, and 6, we can sustain that growth to the point where we get to 30 to 45 huts in the next 7 to 10 years. That's an evolution that has drastically increased. We've shrunk the timeline, and we're optimistic that we can do it.
So you're kind of focusing right now on establishing, like basically doing all the permitting, laying the foundation for a project to be ready to go, and then assuming you've done the fundraising, you have the money to like move forward with it, then pull the trigger and do that basically. And then as much of that foundation as you can lay, you could have 10 projects ready to go, but you might only be able to fund 2 or 3 of them, and then just kind of like check them off as they go along.
Yeah, we're looking into other, funding opportunities as well. That historically, you have a capital campaign, you fundraise for a hut. It's a mix of grants and membership dollars, hut revenue that can be poured into a new hut, which we didn't really have at Chittenden Brook Hut, but we can use that now as revenue for a new structure. And then your private philanthropic giving. But there's growing, like within recreation, there's a growing presence of impact investors who can help us potentially unlock larger federal and state grants by meeting that match component. And oftentimes there's federal grants that, the match is 20%, but 20% of a few $1 million is a lot of money for a nonprofit. And so we're trying to just get creative and figure out ways to, increase the funding opportunities so that when we have those shovel-ready projects, we can actually build them in that time frame.
Yeah, I'll tie into one other thing I know we've been talking about a lot recently is trying to make sure our systems are in place as we're getting ready to scale up. So beyond permitting, I think we're also looking at our membership database tools and even our website and our email management. We're trying to figure out how we can streamline some of these systems. I think we got started, 5 years ago, and we just kind of pieced all this together as we were going and learning. But now that we have enough experience under our belts, we know, okay, this works, but this doesn't. let's streamline systems and just get everything to be a little bit more consistent. So, I know one of my tasks outside of launching new website coming up March 2021 next month. Outside of that, I know that we've got some other systems based work to be doing, like cleaning up databases and looking at just trying to create a cohesive system that's going to work for us, which is also really hard as a nonprofit, because I think the perfect system is one that's not actually created, but it's we'd have to build it ourselves, which is a lot of time and a lot of money that I don't think we have either at this point. So we got to try and find some systems out there that we can adapt to what we need. So we'll continue to struggle with that for a while, I'm sure, but we'll need to at least improve the systems that we have at this point. So
for sure. So are those systems upgrades or improvements, are those to kind of streamline the process for managing this resource, like the Vermont Huts, and to kind of like free up time and increase your capacity to do other meaningful work? Or are parts of it related to kind of user experience, or a little bit of both?
It's a little bit of both. And I mean, the unfortunate reality, like I alluded to it earlier, we are indirectly competing with Airbnb and VRBO, right? But very hyper-specific structures, but they're essentially our competition. Not that we obviously can necessarily compete with them, right? And it's a bit of a mission-driven focus, very different from them, but
they can't compete with us.
Yeah, exactly. We're too hot to handle. They can't keep up with us. But but specifically, I mean, this idea that, and I hate to go off into a marketing tangent just for a second, but so much of 2021 now is just focused on the user experience and making things fast and easy and frictionless for people. And Airbnb and VRBO, they've set a high bar for, having a seamless experience between their website and their mobile apps and, reservations and just how systems work on their side. I think I would love in, 5 to 10 years from now to have a perfect seamless database with, running the website and a mobile app that folks can actually reserve on the fly. But, it's easier said than done. They have, millions of dollars and hundreds of developers to be able to work on that regularly. So we do not have that luxury. So we will try to do the best we can with the tools that we have.
Awesome. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, to Devin's point, in a perfect world, you'd be able to, you can obviously make your reservation online now. That's fine and easy, or on your phone. But it'd be nice to have your adventure package kind of at your ready, and cancel, update, add an additional night at your hut, or schedule another night, all very seamlessly. And it seems simple in the 21st century here in 2021, but it's really damn hard and expensive. So we'll figure it out. Just give us a couple years.
Yeah, the emphasis on expensive, by the way.
Yeah, for sure. Well, we're in the kind of the same boat. Like we, a few years ago, it's probably longer ago than that, but we changed, CRMs, database systems, and, it's a process to like learn a new system for the staff. And then you immediately start noticing shortcomings. And so like, if you're not building something specific to your needs, there's always kind of a give and take. And then you always end up having to work around those things. And, none of us have a team of 100 developers with a, $100 million budget to like say, build this perfect thing for us, maintain it. So,
yeah. And what's challenging too, is that the structures are we're such a unique organization in what we do and what we offer. Like some people just don't get it, like even something as simple as, looking at listings on Google Maps as an example. Like Google, I've had to literally fight Google support on this before, because like they just do not understand that we cannot have our structures listed on Google Maps properties because of the fact that they need to be booking it through, our booking engine and our website. But they're just like, it's a structure that people have gone to and you can reserve it, so we're going to put it on the map. We're like, no. Think of it like Airbnb. Like you're not going to list everybody's homes on Google Maps just because they're using Airbnb. Think of us just like that. But it's a fight that we're going to battle for a while. So yeah, it's unfortunately, I think a lot of it will, until we get to the perfect day, it's going to be, trying to just piecemeal different systems together. But hopefully one day we can have good unified systems with, maybe a developer that can help bring this all together and customize it to what we need to. But We'll see.
I just want to say that if anyone's listening, like, we don't have like a million spreadsheets with all your information stored on it. Like, we're actually very professional, and we use Salesforce as
Yes.
a CRM, which is the world's like biggest CRM and best. And Stripe processes all of your payments, and you can do it all online. And it's none of that information is saved and stored. So it's more just getting these systems to talk to one another better. So don't be scared if you're listening. I've got credit card numbers jotted down on paper here.
It's like all over your second bedroom.
All jokes aside, it's something that like Devin in particular has set up like some really good safe measures. And we had Alec Brecker, who did the development of our membership platform to integrate with Stripe and Salesforce, is a professional web developer. So luckily he did it pro bono for us, because that was something that we definitely could not have afforded in those early days of our existence. But it's just about getting things to run more seamlessly.
Cool.
One more call out, I guess, if there are any developers that are listening and looking for good pro bono projects, reach out.
There you go.
You know who to find now.
So we're approaching an hour. Is there anything else you guys want to tell people that might be listening to this about the Vermont Huts Association? And if somebody wanted to get more involved with the Huts Association, what are the ways they can do that other than offering their development services?
Well, I'll speak to the last one, I guess. Certainly check us out at vermonthuts.org is the best place to find out more information about us. We have opportunities to volunteer when we do have COVID-friendly volunteer days. I don't think we have any planned currently, but we generally do try to drum up volunteers. So that's a great way to get involved. Certainly becoming a member of the organization, which definitely helps our organization grow and gives a little bit of consistent revenue, which can help us in that way. But of course, you also get some great benefits involved as well. And even just booking, staying at the huts, and certainly sharing it with your friends and family is another great thing. I think we've found that we're good, and we have a pretty good base of Vermonters that are familiar with our organization. But I think over the next few years, and especially once some of these state guidelines become a little more eased up, I think we'll really want to be focusing on sharing more messaging to New England and getting other folks from outside the state to come in and enjoy the Vermont beauty, because that's part of why we created the whole organization in the first place, right? Just get people outside, and they don't have to be just Vermonters to enjoy the network. So that definitely speaks to I think the last part.
Yeah, that's great, Devin. I would add, for folks who are like, if anyone's going to watch this and they, I'm sure they are, but for people who are watching it or may watch it in the future that don't know like what a hut is and like what we're even talking about here, we're building little cabins in the forest, and we're doing that so you have places to stay along your adventure, or you just have a base camp for the night or a couple nights. And it creates a new point of access for beginners, families. It's a stepping stone for those individuals, but it's also a base camp for experts and people who have been staying in the wilderness for years and years. So it really caters to anyone and everyone. The stuff that we build on public land, and any of our new huts for that matter, are ADA accessible. We're really trying to make these huts available to everyone. And our mission is to create an enriching and immersive outdoor experience for everyone. So that's really what we're trying to do here. And we've started a program last year, a forest program, and partnered with the Catamount Trail Association to bring underrepresented youth into the Chittenden Brook Hut for a whole weekend of instruction and free gear rental. Thank you again, CTA and VHCB, for providing a small grant to make that happen. But the huts are about bringing people together in a space where they can share stories, talk about their adventures, and enjoy a warm meal without freezing their butts off.
Awesome. Yeah, it's like I said before, like we're excited at the Catamount Trail Association that you guys are doing what you're doing. My wife and family, we're excited for what you guys are doing. I think it's just like a great thing to have, here in Vermont, here on the East Coast for that matter. You know what I mean? Like, down the road, if you are successful in building out this network, it's going to be such a great resource for this part of the country for sure. So before we leave, Devin, you alluded to some membership benefits. So first, do you need to be a member to rent a hut?
No, you do not.
But if you are a member, what are some of the benefits that you get?
The biggest one, and I would say probably the most crucial at this point, is the fact that you will get the opportunity to book a hut usually 1 week in advance of the general public. We've been toying around with that exact length of time, but honestly, that's huge, because we saw this past winter that even members took up a good percentage of the reservations, and it was within a matter of a few hours of actually opening that up. So we're not trying to make the membership exclusive, of course, and we do want the public to be booking these huts, but they get first choice. And so that's certainly, I would say, a big benefit of that. That and discounts on actual hut reservations, as well as branded swag, which I'm actually not wearing one, so I don't know why I did that. So good stuff there. And we, like I mentioned before, we are going to be trying to add more benefits as we continue to go along as well. So stay tuned for that.
Yeah. Well, I would say early access and discounts are pretty significant, considering how difficult it can be to get the dates you want. So
really, you will end up, the cost of the actual membership is not that much. It's $35 for an individual, or 65, 75. I don't even remember now. But
65 for a family.
65. That's right. But you pretty much you can make that up within nearly a single reservation, if not maybe two, depending on, which huts you're at and dates and times. So it's almost a no-brainer.
Well, personally, I would say the prices are so reasonable already that it doesn't, like, you easily make it up within the first reservation. If you get the date you want the first time, it's worth it.
Mm-hmm.
One last, since we're talking about membership, I can just say that March 15th is when we'll be opening for member reservations for this coming spring and summer. So that'll be mid-April through mid-October. And then on March 22nd, reservations will open to the general public. So we'll be sending out stuff announcing that in the coming weeks, but you've heard it here first, thanks to,
Thanks.
Yeah.
Thank you. Well, and prior to that, it sounds like there's going to be a new website as well, right? Is that going to be?
Yes.
My goal is to precede the spring reservations.
Yeah. I think my goal is to have it launched, just a few days before that reservation opens. So no pressure on me at all, but it should be fine.
Devin's got it. Luckily, yeah, Devin will handle it just fine.
Well, and it's good news now that it's public. I guess I have to get it launched before March 15th.
If you need somebody to test the reservation system prior to opening reservations, I'll volunteer my services.
Hey.
Sounds good. Thanks for the help. Appreciate it.
I wanted to give one more shout out to our partner operators. I feel like we talk about them, acknowledge them, but the network, we're going to build new huts over the years to come, but we're also going to partner with new operators inevitably across the state. But the ones that we have that signed on early in the beginning, that like put faith in us as an organization to do this and do it well. It was a bit of a leap of faith for them, because they very easily could have listed on HipCamp or any of those other bigger platforms, but they chose us, and that's awesome. So thanks to Crow's Nest and Triple Creek and Nullhegan Hut and the other pre-existing Green Mountain Club and Merck Forest structures that we help to promote. But yeah, they're all part of the equation, and I think they'll continue to play a bigger part as we enter more private land in the northern part of the state. Great.
And if somebody has a hut or a structure that they are interested in utilizing in this way and renting out, they can get in touch with one of you guys, and you guys can help them, walk them through the process and see if it's right for them.
Yeah, on our website, there's a pretty easy spot for folks who might be interested in becoming a member or becoming an operator. They can reach out to us through there, or certainly email us info@vermonthuts.org.
Great. Well, thanks, guys. If you guys don't have anything else to add, I think we'll we'll wrap this up. I want to thank everybody that might be out there watching for tuning in. Again, this is part of the Catamount Trail Chatter series. We're hoping to keep this going. Next week, we'll be taking a break, but we'll be back the following week with some representatives from our youth and ski cubs programs to talk about their work in the recent years and how that part of the Catamount Trail Association is kind of helping kind of grow access and increase diversity within the outdoors. So tune in then. Devin and RJ, thank you again. Good luck with the next few years. We'll definitely, my family and I will definitely be staying with you guys if we can get the dates. All right, guys.
Awesome. Thanks for having us.
Thank you, Greg. Always good to chat.
All right, and we're out.